What's up, pod pals? It's your buddy Adam, and you are checking out Podcasting Business School. This is the show where I teach podcasters how to love their podcast like a hobby and build it like a business. It's another podcast audit episode. I've got my new pod pal, Arastasia Rolane from the Passion and Potential podcast. We're going to dive into some tips on monetization, growth, and engagement. Arastasia, how's it going? Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It is awesome. I'm super excited to do this. Give me all your knowledge.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about like who you're trying to serve with your show. Can you describe the ideal listener? And I think that's always a good place to start.
Agreed. All right. So my ideal listener is currently it is mostly females in their 20s to 30s. I do have some men listeners, but predominantly females. They want more out of their life, and they're most likely creative and have a hobby that they want to turn into a side hustle or business. So they come to my podcast to learn not only the business steps of that, but also to learn just the overcoming of mental challenges, mindset. They want to believe in themselves, but unfortunately, they've never been taught that. And so they need a little bit of push and accountability and inspiration.
Okay. So like keywords that are hitting for me are like side hustle, new entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, kind of a business 101, how to get your idea out of your head and into motion. Is that all sounding good so far?
That is very perfect.
Okay, good. Now, on your notes that you sent me, I noticed that you talked about you're trying to do some mentoring sessions. So is that kind of like a podcast audit style session? Is that what we're looking at there?
Yes, and I actually kind of took you as inspiration, so thank you.
Good.
I recently just started offering these free mentoring calls, like literally what we're doing, and turning them into podcast episodes, much like you are doing. So Thank you once again. So I'm now in the process of creating ways to let people know I'm offering that and get them hooked, and hopefully turning it into more of an ongoing way to monetize the podcast.
Yeah. So I'm really proud of you for doing this. And I tell people, I mean, you've listened to a bunch of my episodes. I'm like, do what I'm doing, copy what I'm doing. This is working. Apply it to you. Like, take the blueprint, go. What I'm interested, what are you calling these? Because this is an important thing that sometimes people mess. Are you calling them mentorship sessions, or is there another name? Like I call mine, like we could call this a coaching session, but I call it a podcast audit. And that brings a different level of like people show up for my show up ratio is really good because it's not called a free coaching session. So what are we calling these things?
So I haven't really gotten too creative with it right now. I gave a title to the podcast episode of what it was about, and then I just put like dash live mentoring session. Okay. So I'm sure there's a more crafty way to get with it, but I was like, let's just start now and go.
So I think like I would love to see you get creative with what you call it. That's going to help with the recruiting as well, because anybody and everybody can offer a free mentorship, free coaching session. But I want you to get descriptive. Like when I say podcast audit, like people know what a tax audit is, and then they go podcast audit. This sounds like something that could be helpful, especially if they're a struggling podcaster. So put your ideal listener boots on and go, all right, what's a pain point or some keywords that serve to or speak to a pain point that we could toss in the name of this thing. And I would just spend some time exploring that. So you think like solopreneurs, new business startups, side hustle, like a side hustle startup session, or, you know, like something that just kind of flows a little bit. That's going to be, it's going to serve you well to have something like that put together. Is that making sense so far?
Yes, absolutely. I love that. And just really like branding it to me and making it very like niche versus just mentoring.
Exactly. And embrace your unique flavor and style and what you're teaching, and really think about like, if you've got, obviously a social media presence, newsletter list, you can put surveys out there and just ask them like, what is your number one pain point right now? Maybe give them a few that you know of, like list those things. And just look at keywords, I don't know, little things like that. It'll really help you stand out, and it'll get people to sign up. It'll get them to show up because the value is right there in the title. So
I love
So
that.
anyway, so I'm glad that you're doing them
Yay.
now. You know, what we need to do is get them out there regularly on your show. So that's kind of the three levels look like this. So when you first start with this type of an episode, you got to go find people and you got to just drag them on there. And like, you got to get people that are your clients, your friends, your neighbors, your relatives, people that you are colleagues with, or you do business with, and go, hey, here's what I'm doing. I need you to come on the show. I just need an example. I got to get these out so people understand what it is, why it's cool, and why they need to do it. So you start releasing those. I always set a goal with my clients, like, let's find 3 people that are kind of ringers, and let's just get them in there and get 3 of these episodes out at whatever cadence works for your show. But that episode, you're going to sponsor with the promo of how to sign up for these. And that's where the name really comes in. Like, you got to have that name dialed in. So we want to make sure that we've got the name dialed in. You go, hey, sign up for, what I call a podcast audit, blah, blah, blah. Here's the link. Here's how you do it. So then once you get those 3 episodes out, people will start to sign up. And then, once you do that for several months, like I'm almost 2 years in on these podcast audits. So now, like you said, you've listened to a lot of my episodes, you've heard a lot of these, so you know what to expect. I have a lot of people that show up to these where I'm not a big like sales conversation guy anyway, but I have people showing up going, hey, I'm going to hire you before we even hit record. Like, just so you know, I'm going to be joining Download Growth Club, or I want you to consult on my show, or whatever. So that's what I love about it. It really greases the wheels of business, where people, you're top of mind as a coach. You are showing off your expertise in the space that you live in, and it's just lots of reps, and it's going to be well branded with whatever you decide to call it. So, is that progression making sense? Is that vibing so far?
Yeah, absolutely. And so when I first released, much like you said, it was kind of like asking people, like, will you be on it? And I did that with people who I knew were exactly in those beginning stages of have passion, but need to like turn it into something. And after I released that first episode, I did get more people who signed up, and then someone who even did reach out and say, how much is a full mentoring session? I listened to the episode and I just don't know where to start. So, yes, absolutely makes sense. I guess this is where I have to force myself to focus on the baby steps and the long-term benefits.
Yeah, it's reps. And sometimes we want to put one of those episodes out and have 1 million people come up and go, oh, I want to hire you as my coach. And it's just not going to happen that way. Like, it's going to happen down the line. But like I said, just you think that's why I started releasing these every single Friday as a second episode of the week, because it's so effective for my business. I want people listening every Friday. Just they've listened to dozens of these, and all of a sudden they're like, I need a coach. Who am I going to hire? I'm going to hire Adam, because I've heard him coach dozens of times, and I vibe with his style. So that's what we want to build for you. This just tons and tons of assets is what it is, where people are listening and you're just that top of mind choice. So now I'm looking through my notes here, and you had mentioned maybe trying to get a little Patreon or some paid Zoom stuff going. Is that still one of your goals?
Yeah, so I was hoping to somehow, and this is maybe where I'm like all over the place and just need a concrete vision, but I was hoping to have some form of like monthly membership or, group where I answer a lot of the frequently asked questions or frequently visited pain points to help kind of then funnel into hire me to be this bigger version of literally getting you started with your business.
Yeah.
So I am kind of exploring that. I'm not quite there yet. I'm in the building foundation of it, kind of figuring out which direction, but I absolutely want to do that. And I think it'll be a good way to get people to join in, trust, learn, hire.
Yeah. Yeah. So like when we look at your podcasting success timeline, like I got those 4 phases. And if you guys that are listening, if you haven't checked out episode 220 of the show, whenever this is released, it's in the past, it's in the Wayback Machine. But I break down the podcasting success timeline into 4 zones. And Anastasia, I think you're in zone 2, which is what I call the post-launch frustration zone. All right. So some of the symptoms are like, you're figuring things out. Right. And I've got this checklist to move to stage 3. And one of them is, creating a community engagement lead magnet. So like what you're doing with your coaching style episodes,
Mhm.
right on. That's definitely one of the things that we want to check off. The next thing is we want to elevate you into that 500 to 1,000 download per episode zone. All
Yes.
right. So, and that is where, the coaching style episodes, that's going to lead to the lowest hanging fruit, in my opinion. If you offer coaching, one-on-one coaching or small group coaching or consulting or like VIP day experiences,
Like that.
that's the lowest hanging fruit. That's how you're going to start making money. That's how you're going to make your first, year of being a six-figure podcaster. That's what it's going to be. All right. We need volume of listeners for memberships, online courses, events, because we need people for that. Like we need volume. So, but in the zone that you're in, I still recommend that we start to envision that and start to put those pieces in place where, we figure out how to use Patreon, or we figure out how to do a membership, and we start to upload content that we're already creating. So we have this like video index so that when we're ready to flip the switch and we've got those download numbers, we're ready to rock. So that's a little bit of a longer term play.
Mhm.
So right now, I would hold off on like the membership, Patreon, Zoom stuff. Really put your chips in on the one-on-one mentorship sessions, and driving towards one-on-one or small group coaching experiences to monetize that. But start to put together the ideas on the membership. But like we need to grow those downloads. So with that, I mean, is that making sense so far? I don't want to skip ahead.
That makes absolute sense. And I can absolutely be a visionary. So it's wonderful for you to take me back and be like, do this first before you get to the big idea. I love that.
Yeah, that's why I did that whole episode on the timeline thing, is you're in zone 2. And this is what we focus on in zone 2. I've helped hundreds of podcasters do this. Like and I've been through it myself with all my shows. So that's what we focus on. So the other part, action step with zone 2, is we want to start running some podcast player ads, where that is where we dive into the podcast player apps, where anywhere you listen to a show that's not called Apple Podcasts, you can run an ad, which is cool. Apple Podcast just happens to be like 50 to 60% of all the downloads, but still millions and millions of downloads happen on all these other podcast players. So like Spotify, that's a podcast player app. Overcast, that's another podcast player app. So we can run banner ads, or on Spotify, you can run audio ads, and we can scoop up podcast listeners that are currently listening to podcasts just like yours. And that is so much more effective than Facebook and Instagram ads, where I will never run those again, just because you have to get them on a platform where they may not even know what a podcast is.
Right.
And we have to get them off that platform onto a podcast player, and hopefully they'll hit the subscribe button, and we can't track that. With a podcast player ad, we get how many people saw my banner, how many people clicked on it, how many people hit the subscribe button. All of those metrics are tracked, which is huge. And you're advertising to podcast listeners that are listening to shows just like yours.
That's so smart.
No brainer.
No brainer.
So I'm going to I talk about Overcast on the show because I think it was episode 137 where I did a full breakdown of that platform. I've got some other spots that I will email you off air that I don't mention because they're all volume based. And I apologize to everybody that is listening, but I can't put the APB out there because I kind of screwed myself on Overcast because all the prices like 10x after I did that episode because so many people started buying ads. More people buy ads, the more expensive it gets. So I've got a few other secret fishing spots that I'll send you. And if you guys want to come and get those, you got to come on Podcast Audit, and I'll send them to you guys too. But like, for example, I had a client in my Download Growth Club that recently ran an ad on a platform that's not Overcast. She's got she's in the psychic space. All right. And she ran an ad in the comedy podcast category. And she picked up 200 new subscribers for like $200. It's almost like $1 per new subscriber, not a download. So that's people that hit the subscribe button, and she's got 70 plus episodes. So they're now binge listening. Those are going to turn into thousands of downloads of dedicated listeners, like real people that are listening to her show for a couple $100. And there's no way you could find 200 podcast subscribers for $200 on a Facebook ad. Zero. I mean, it's not going to happen. So is that making sense? Is that kind of getting you excited so far?
Yeah, I love that. I didn't even realize that like that could be such a beneficial avenue. And I didn't really want to do Facebook and Instagram ads because once again, like you said, not everyone even listens to podcasts.
Yep.
So I was like, well, this is going to be like so much effort for like
Yeah.
not a lot of return.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And banner ads on podcast players are simple. Like I can walk you through it and you'll have an ad set up in 3 minutes or less. There's no targeting. There's no like, it's nothing like doing a Facebook ad. You basically pick the category you want to advertise in. They take your image from your show that's already loaded up in your host and your description from your show that's already loaded up in your host. You can alter that a little bit on certain players. That's your ad, and you pay and you pick your dates that you want to run it on, and we're good.
I
So
love it.
simple, which I like.
I love
So that's another thing we're going to check off. So you've got the coaching style episodes. I like that. We're going to check off investing a little bit of money into the podcast player ads. You will grow your listenership most rapidly through that. I tend to encourage people to look for pricing that'll where you can acquire subscribers for $5 or less. That's going to so. If you pay $500, I want you to get at least 100 subscribers, basically. So that's what we're looking for as a goal. The other thing I think you could crush it with, obviously getting on other people's podcasts and things like that, doing that thing, but podcast promo intro swaps. This
Mhm.
is something, and I want to do one with you for sure. So I'll send you my template so that you can record for my show, and then I'll record for your show, and then we just do this little swap. And it's so easy. It's like 30 seconds. And I think with your show, I mean, you're a great fit for my show because it's in the business space, and there's so many shows in that the business, social media, marketing, personal development space. Anybody that you interview, anybody that you know that has a show, you got to hit them up and go, hey, let's do a podcast promo intro swap. I'll give you my template. You email that to them. Go, here's what I need. Just record it, and it's just this little ad that is on, and it's there forever. It's on someone else's show, and it's advertising your show, and people binge listen. So when people binge listen to Podcasting Business School, they're going to run across that episode where you introduce my show, but you also get to mention your show. And it's like this little, it's this little connection point to get them to
I
listen to
love
your
that.
show. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think episode 204, I do a full breakdown if I remember correctly. It's in the low 200s, and I'll connect you with that as well. I'm sending you all the things. So those are some notes that I made, just kind of like quick action step things that I know will work for you. What else, like whether questions or whether focus point, do you want to toss out there for us to cover here today?
And I'm sure a lot of these things that these little nuggets you gave me will help with these things, but currently I have like a very wonderful, supportive little listener group, and they engage in my like Facebook group. They'll listen to episodes, they'll tag me on social media. I love it. So now I'm like, okay, how do I get past that group and grow to where it's not just them? And it's great. I mean, I literally love them. I'm just like, I feel like over and over, like they're my go-to, and I just need to grow it. And maybe some of these things you were saying are ways that I can.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the things I talked about already will work, but if you have super fans, there's
Mhm.
superpower and super fans. You know what I'm saying? So we go, how do we leverage this? Because I sit in the same situation. Like my people that I connect with that are like in my membership and clients and stuff, or even people just listen to the show, like they're down. They've listened to a couple hundred
Yeah.
of my episodes. They're like, this is awesome. So how do we carry that momentum out there and make good use of it? So ideas, you could do some sort of a giveaway for your
Mhm.
show listeners, where I've done like a share it out thing. And this is a great way to kind of mingle with potential sponsors down the road too, as you connect with a few brands that, okay, so here's an example. I just bought a new pair of fancy jeans so that I can wear them to Podfest and present on stage. So if you guys go and see me at Podfest, I'll be wearing my new fancy jeans from Mott and Bow, Mott and BOW. So I'm going to reach out to them and I'm going to go, hey, I love your jeans. I love your product. I'm a podcaster in the business space. I know a lot of entrepreneurs. I'd love to do a co-branding giveaway. And they'll probably say yes. Like we'll give away a pair of jeans or something. Like I almost guarantee that they'll say yes. And I'll do something on my show and be like, hey, for everybody listening in, we're doing a special giveaway this week. If you share out the episode, you can share out an episode every day this week on Instagram and tag us and tag whoever the sponsor is. And we'll choose one person that does that to win the prize package, or you can choose 5 people or whatever you want to do. So that gets them sharing it out on social media. And don't do just one episode. You can share one episode every single day if you want to. So they can share 7 of your episodes, 1 per day, and that'll get people sharing out. So any questions on that technique?
Yeah. So now when you do these giveaways, do you not feel like it needs to be super aligned with like your target audience? Because so you mentioned like you're doing jeans, which jeans is very broad.
Yeah.
And this is maybe where I like, am I overthinking? Like, so I've been thinking of ways that I could do giveaways or brand, collabs. And then I'm like, well, does it need to be very specific and niche, or could it just be anything to build into this, growing my audience?
Yeah. I mean, with you, you're in a similar space as me. So I think clothing, lifestyle brands, health brands, tech brands, all that's fair game. Because think about all the stuff that you use. Like as an entrepreneur, like I'm buying these pants so I can go present on stage, at a podcasting event. So like tech stuff, some people give away an Apple Watch or an iPad or something like that. But that, dealing with Apple, that's a bigger company. So I like dealing with these like brands that are kind of out there building up and hustling, and they're more likely to really like collaborate. Like I'm looking at my $5,000 infrared sunlight and sauna right now in my podcast bunker. Guess what? Guess how much I paid for that? 0, because they gave it to me because I'm a podcaster. So yeah, so might as well ask, right? And I'm a brand influencer, and I send them a lot of business because I talk about them on my Instagram story. I'm in there sweating my face off, and I'm talking about sunlight and saunas. If you guys listen in, want a sunlight and sauna, hit me up, and I'll hook you up with my discount code. They're great, but anyway, like think outside of the box with these brand partnerships, but maybe ask your super fans, like, what would you guys be psyched about? Like, what would make you go like psycho with sharing out the show? What kind of brand package or would you be really, really excited about if we're going to do a giveaway? So just get them clued in that way. I mean, that's one way to really put those people out there. You can do all sorts of like podcast referral stuff, anything with getting them to share it out, but also video testimonials. So like have them send you a video via email. Like, why do they listen to your show? Favorite episode, why they love it, and start making Instagram reels out of those suckers.
That's
TikTok
so
videos. Like,
I'm literally a photographer and videographer. Why didn't I think of that? Like,
let's go. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's low hanging fruit. That's easy. And that's like, you get one, like I always go do a vertical phone, send it to me, and I can put that on Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, TikTok, and it goes nuts. And it's just social proof. So
love that.
Yeah. And maybe you do a giveaway associated with that and go, hey, if you send me a testimonial video, I'm going to do a drawing and send out some merch. Or people do crazy stuff for branded merch. Like, don't ever give away your coaching for free, because I've done that. I'm like, it's going to be $1,000 coaching package. No one does anything. I give away a t-shirt and they're killing themselves to get the t-shirt.
Tangible.
Yeah. So
now when you do these videos, are you doing it almost like in a advertisement way? Like, is someone literally being like, oh my God, this podcast has helped my life? Or are they just like, today I discovered like how, or I'll go stalk your page. Just kidding. Yeah.
Just give them a little bit of a framework of what you want them to say. And I always tell people to keep it to 60 seconds or less, so it fits on an Instagram reel and TikTok and all that stuff. But just like I do these with my Download Growth Club members. I'm like, let me know why you joined, what you're seeing out of it, and the best part is. So maybe it's like, I found the podcast because I was looking for answers to blah, blah, blah. I love it. I recommend episode blah, blah, blah. And like something like just a little 3-step framework. Just otherwise they'll either say nothing that's helpful, or they'll just blab for 10 minutes and then we can't use it. So, but give them a little 2 or 3 step, in the first 15 seconds, talk about this, and the next 10 seconds, talk about that. And then finish by saying the best part is, or my favorite episode is blah, blah, blah. Tune in, wherever you listen to audio.
Love that. Okay.
Yeah, just make it super simple and fun. Do a little something around it. And that's like social, and you can put those on your website, those go everywhere. So use the super fans for good. And I think the fact that you're getting people that are psyched about your show, that's a great sign that you're doing, you're speaking to the right people and you're saying the right things to the right people and helping them out. So now it's just putting in reps and making sure that we keep growing your brand through these other avenues that we talked about. So is that helpful?
Very, very. Thank you.
Outstanding. All right. So I've got a few more notes, of course, that I made that I'll be sending your way, but I want to make sure people can get plugged into your world. So
Mhm.
if people want to check out your show, check out your website, socials, let's toss all that stuff out there.
All right. So if they want to listen to the show, it's Passion and Potential. You can find it really on any listening app. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's at Arastasia. I'll spell my name. So ARASTASIA. And then you can also go to my website, which is passionandpotentialpodcast.com.
Outstanding. Arastasia, I have enjoyed this. You've got the foundation of an amazing, not just a show, but a community. I can tell you're a community builder, and that fire's been lit. So now we just got to keep it burning bright and keep your, keep your eyes on the prize and keep moving towards that. So I'm proud of you, and I've got your back now. Okay, Pod Pal.
Yes.
All right, everybody. If you want to do a podcast audit, just like my new Pod Pal, Arastasia, head on over to the website, podcastingbusiness.school. Get signed up. It's free and it's amazing. And speaking of amazing, I appreciate you all for tuning in today. I'll send you out into the podcasting world, wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. We will see you next time.